So the trend that I'm actually seeing is because I would say take a slightly different look. Don't look at the technology, right? Look at
Right.
what's the client's problems you're solving for. Because when you talk to somebody, everybody says, "Oh, I need AI," but you're like, "Well, it's not AI. What's the problem that AI is trying to solve?" So I always just start out with your client. What's the issue that they're dealing with, and how best you can solve that enabled by technology. So what I'm starting to see more and more is that initially it used to be you would find a lot of one-off solutions which was solving for like very small pieces of the technology puzzle, because it was like, technology was still it's a relatively early stages, or even AI could only solve for one part of the puzzle.
Hey guys, and welcome to the Grow IT podcast. One of your hosts here, Trey King. And today we are very excited to have our guest, Nita Sanger from Idea Innovative Consulting. And today we'll be diving a bit into her story as well as, what her company does. And then, as always, some engaging insights into the technology industry. So make sure to stick around for this one. But without further ado, Nita, welcome. Thanks for hopping on today.
Thank you for having me.
Nita, I think it's let's maybe have a good start to it, if you don't mind, just to kindly introduce yourself and just give us a bit of background about you and your business.
So let me give you a little bit of my background. So I've been a consultant for pretty much my entire life. I started doing, and I do specialize in services, businesses consulting, which includes financial services, professional services, and legal services. And that's what I've been doing my entire career. So I started out with a smaller company, which is now part of Houlihan Lokey, which was called Freeman and
Right.
Company. Then I went over to Deloitte, where I was there for about 14 years. And then I worked for this another firm called Walters Kluwer, which is a Dutch firm, to help them to transform one of their businesses. And then I started my own company when I left Deloitte's Idea Innovate Consulting, but I've also worked at firms like Cherry Beckard, which is a smaller audit, tax, and advisory firm, helping them figure out what their growth strategy and transformation strategy needed to be, which enabled them to get PE funding. So in terms of my specialties, helping businesses transform themselves for growth. And obviously, technology is a big enabler of that to help them sort of get their businesses to the next level and position them for growth in a world that's changing so rapidly around us.
Oh, excellent. Tell me, like you mentioned, you're a consultant. Uh, what like type of examples can you maybe provide on the types of problems and challenges that you solved, or the desired outcomes that your clients are looking forward to when you obviously do business with them?
Things that I've actually sort of done and the most proud of has been the fact that a lot of times clients come to me when they've got an issue that they're facing, and they'll come to you with the symptoms. So one of my biggest projects was when I was working at Deloitte, was to help transform their global audit business. And the
Oh,
CEO
wow.
had come and said the business was flatlining and the margins were flat. The other businesses within the firm were growing at double digits, and they had been kind of being the leadership had been told that if you don't get your transform your business, then you're going to be like, we're going to have to sell the business. So where I was brought in was to help transform the business. And I'm like, but I don't even understand audit that well. So he basically said, we need somebody who brings an outsider perspective, is not afraid to challenge the way we do things and help us figure out how we could do things better and more efficiently. So what I was able to do there was to actually sort of say, how's the business done today? Understand what with all the tasks being done, what of those could be automated and streamlined. So you streamline them, automate them, and then sort of so that you can deliver much more efficiently to help sort of, do it quicker, better, faster. Then looked at the next thing was to kind of look at what should we be doing in terms of what are the other services you can offer those same clients, because they obviously have needs with this increasing complexity of technology. So giving financial assurance are the other areas of assurance that you could do. And then the other thing was to say, when the CEO kept on pushing and saying, no, think bolder.
Nita, like you mentioned, you're in the consultant industry. If you don't mind, can you please give me an example of, what it is, the type of outcomes or, challenges and things that your clientele, hires you to solve for them and obviously sort out their companies.
Okay, so what we usually find is then when clients come to me, and I'll talk to you about some couple of specific projects if we have enough time for that, is that my clients usually come is they tell you that they have a symptom. It's the same when you go to a doctor and say my head is hurting. So one of the biggest projects that I thought was one of my most fascinating ones was where the CEO of the global audit business at Deloitte came to me and said, we've been told the margins were flat and the revenues were not growing in the audit business, while as the other businesses within the firm were growing at double digits. So he had been he had been tasked and been told, if you do not improve the profitability and the revenue growth of your business, we're going to have to sell it off. So he brought me in to help sort of transform the audit. And I remember going like, but I never done audit because I'm a consultant. So he
Right.
basically said, we needed somebody who comes in from the outside, who would who's basically can question the way things are done and help us figure out a better way of doing things. And that sort of becomes the fundamental of how, when you're transforming a business, you have to almost be willing to sort of question how everything is being done without sort of being afraid of like saying, this is how it's always been done. So as a result of what I was able to do was to say, how could we do what we were doing in terms of delivery to make it more efficient? So looked at all the tasks, then figured out which of them could be automated, how technology could be used to make that more efficient, so that you were actually able to deliver the audit more effectively, which would actually mean that you would then be reducing your costs and improving your margins. Then we were like, to grow revenues, what are the other products and services that you can offer those same clients, given that the businesses are getting more complex, the security and privacy issues and risk issues, and you're able to then say, what other areas of assurance could you provide them, not just beyond financial assurance. And then the last thing was the CEO really pushed me to say, what you need to think bolder. How can we disrupt our own business before somebody else comes and does it for us? So then we created a technology startup, just AI enabled startup that sat between which sat between audit and their clients, to be able to then, it would be an AI enabled platform with the intention that ultimately the platform could get so powerful that it would, you might not need to have like auditors. You could actually then crowdsource auditors. So the thinking was
Right.
very big. And that was sort of one of the biggest projects that kind of started me of this whole thing of transformation journey and how technology can enable that. The other thing was more recently when I was working at the firm that I was at before, which is called Cherry Beckert. The whole industry, the audit, tax, and advisory industry, especially with all these technologies, and was already
Mm.
going through some kind of a change, and people are trying to figure out what they needed to do. The CEO had come in and wanted to figure out how we could grow the firm's revenues. And because I'd done this before, I actually went in to sort of say, what should we almost create? What should the firm of the future look like? How can we transform audit, tax, advisory, and then what products and services that we can offer now, given that all these technologies are there, what kind of things that clients are going to need. And so that's what we were able to do. And as a result, when I put the whole strategy and the roadmap together, which was going to be all the new products and services we could offer, et cetera, and then how we grow the business, how do we improve margins, and we were able to get PE funding. And as a result, the firm within the past 24 months has been able to grow revenues by 150%. So those were some of the two of the things that, like, so clients always come to you with that they're looking to solve for something, and then you
Yep.
figure out what's the best way to go about doing that and how technology enables it.
Talking about that, having said that on technology, what's your take on, like the current market sentiment and trends that's currently going on in the technology space? Obviously, you work with, with a lot of clients, whereas they've got different needs from a technology perspective, right? But what have you been noticing lately? What ways are the winds blowing?
So the trend that I'm actually seeing is, because I would say take a slightly different look. Don't look at the technology, right? Look at
Right.
what's the client's problems you're solving for. Because when you talk to somebody, everybody says, oh, I need AI. But you're like, well, it's not AI. What's the problem that AI is trying to solve? So I always just start out with your client. What's the issue that they're dealing with, and how best you can solve that enabled by technology? So what I'm starting to see more and more is that initially it used to be you would find a lot of one-off solutions, which was solving for like very small pieces of the technology puzzle, because it was like, technology was still, it's a relatively early stages, or even AI could only solve for one part of the puzzle. Now what
Right.
clients are saying, we want them to be, as holistic as possible. So that's where you're seeing that a lot of the firms that are there are now starting to think of from an enterprise perspective and saying, what are all the problems we can solve, starting small, maybe getting PE funding, doing additional acquisitions, and then putting like a firm together that solves more of the client's problems, like as a one-stop shop. So those are some of the
Right.
trends that I'm seeing. But to be successful, you always have to start, whose problem are you trying to solve, and how does your
Mm.
solution solve for that? Because clients are not looking for AI, they're looking for a problem they're trying to solve. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that's such a good way of explaining it. Talking about AI, what's your opinion on? I mean, it is a buzzword, right, for the last 2 years. Is
Yeah.
what's your take on your perspective on AI at the moment from a business point of view? What's your take on it?
So I would say that first, we are the early stage of the AI journey. And the
Okay.
potential for this to transform most of our businesses is huge. And so,
Mm,
so when you start out, initially when we started out with AI, it was very much like RPA, natural language processing. So taking the lower level tasks, which you could standardize and automate, and then how technology could enable you to do them faster and better.
mm,
Right. So instead of taking 10 hours to do something, and the same task was being done again, that's what you're able to do. But now, as we move things forward, we are having things like generative AI, which means, and I'll give you an example just because of the industries that I sort of focus on is, let's say, services businesses. So one of the things as consultants we always used to do was to understand our clients' problems. And then we would be like, okay, then we would say, okay, we did all this research. Here are the insights we can provide you, and here's what you need to do. Today, generative AI can do that for like get us the 80% by
right.
like in 5 minutes, which took us, months and hours to do. That means
Mm,
generative AI now has the potential to actually provide insights much faster, quicker. Doesn't mean the human being is going away. It's just making the human being so much more productive. So instead of spending 100 hours doing this, I can get the AI to give it to me in an hour, and then I can put my insights on top of that and sort of say, hey, now I know some nuances and make that better. So I think we are at this very, very interesting phase that this could impact almost every business that we are doing. And the key is to almost see like which business you're in from a firm perspective, and what does that mean for you, not today, but like how's this going to evolve? And I'm sure there might be other uses which we've not thought about today. Who would have thought about generative AI like 5 years ago? So I
yeah,
would say
yeah.
there's still so much opportunity of where this is going to go. So I think we are in this time, but change is the only constant, and the pace of changes is getting faster. And when they say about exponential technology, initially the pace of change is small, it's gonna start picking up even more. So I think it's more that all of us who are in business now have to think about that mindset. This is where we are, and can have an organization that's nimble enough as technologies change to sort of change how we operate our businesses.
I've actually had a IT director on the podcast recently, and with their company, he told me that a lot of times when it comes to the top management of the business, whereas they don't necessarily understand AI that well, but they just hear about it and know it needs to be implemented and they want it done now. And he told me that it's so difficult because, I mean, every company's got a certain budget, right? And they need to decide. And he said to focus on the front end of it, of their business. They've got a retail front, or on the back end side, or can't do it all at once, and where to what to start first and things like that. So I can think, it's a good debate, whereas a lot of people are so very much optimistic about it, and most people, what I've picked up, are cautiously optimistic about it. And there's some people that say, oh my word, everybody's going to lose their jobs. And like you rightfully mentioned, now it's here, it's not there to replace the units, there to up the productivity and to enhance. So yeah, I fully agree with you.
One
What
thing I
I
would like to add is that if you're in technology, right, if you're within a firm in any technology group, historically, it's always been viewed as a back office, like,
Mhm.
it's kind of supports everything. But what I would say is that the CTO or the CIO now needs to start almost thinking as an executive and having a
Right.
seat at the table. Because if you do not do that and bring your technology leaders up front as you're making some of the business decisions of what you're looking to do, That's a huge issue because everybody talks about when you're implementing technologies and AI, there's a time involved. There's a lot of security issues that you need to resolve. If you're doing cross-border work, you need to make sure what data can cross boundaries, where data gets hosted. There's a lot of the things which a business person would not understand. It's because I've done some of these, transformations and, actually implementing technologies that you realize. So the somebody who heads technology within any organization now needs to
Yeah.
think of themselves as an executive, basically helping the C-suite achieve what they're looking to achieve and have a seat at the table so they can help solve these problems up front and not wait
Right.
until afterwards.
I can tell you there's a lot of IT leaders making a couple of notes now. You've been a consultant, like you mentioned, for quite some time, right? And I mean, you've seen a lot of situations. What would we've got an audience that's that's widespread when it comes to age, and there's a lot of younger generation, of entrepreneurs coming into the market, and they obviously either work for a company and they want to jump ship, or it might be that they, starting from scratch. Is there maybe a couple of pointers of advice, that you might give even for, the current other consultants out there, but some advice that you are willing to give on, how to be a successful founder of a business?
One of the first things I would say is, I I always say start off with like the best businesses or the ones that are the most successful are trying to meet a need that the current market environment is not meeting. Right? There's something that's changing there. And any sort of great, like, new businesses that have come in that have been successful have
Yeah.
come in and been successful because there was a need that was there, either spoken or unspoken, that they
Mm,
were solving for. Right. And then once you sort of say, okay, want to do something differently, then you almost have to say, okay, what is it that I'm solving? A lot of times people don't know it themselves, what they're looking for, because when you think of our phones, which went from regular phones to become iPhones, right? When they got in like so many other things that they added to it. So besides being able to say, what's the problem I'm solving for, is to be able to reimagine that business, to think about it totally differently and say, what can you be doing? And like literally, the iPhone is the best example. When you started, it was just a phone. Now it can take pictures. It can be you can actually, so you have to really think about that piece of it. What is it that you're solving, where you can get so many parts of, so it's like reimagining what it could be. And
right.
then in some ways also thinking about, so what somebody who's starting off the business, first remember, it's never easy. When what everybody thinks about is, oh, this just happened overnight. It happened like 10 years before you actually saw the overnight thing happen. So there's a lot of slogging that goes into it. There is no other way around that. But at every stage, you need to have a couple of things. Keep in touch with your clients. What are they looking for? Almost co-create what you're trying to do with them, because co-creation, then they're kind of bought into it. They provide you feedback. That becomes incredibly critical. And then be willing to look almost like, have peripheral vision, because sometimes things that you don't realize can be helping solve the problem. Be willing to, so that means think outside the box. Bring in people who think differently from you, who would say, hey, have you thought about something that we could do it this way? So it's literally a few things that would be there. Be very, very client focused. But as you start to solve problems, bring in people who bring in, different thinking from yourself, and bring in your
Yeah.
end users, which is your clients. So then, and when you have that combination, that's when you will come up with some of the best ideas. But it's a
Yep.
slog. And then, so anybody who's
So
starting, you have to be willing to put in like 5, 6, 7 years before you'll actually start seeing some results.
some results. That's so profound. Such good advice. Thank you. Thank you for that. And then wanting to know what is what's next on the cards for you that you are planning for 20, for this year going forward, wanting to grow, and what's on the horizon for you at the moment?
So what I'm kind of doing is, because my industry, which is the audit, tax, and advisory, is going through this huge transformation. PE
Yeah.
funding's coming in, which is changing how the business operates. The technologies have come in, which enables us to provide different kinds of services. And how do you so different kinds of services and products that you can offer the same set of clients. And the clients' needs are changing. So I see the opportunities for what I'm doing in my business, which is helping them figure out the growth strategy,
Mm.
is huge, because right now This hasn't been an industry that's been around for like 150 plus years. Now everybody's starting to realize we need to operate in a different way. So to me, that's where I see the opportunity for somebody like myself, who's done this a few times, to be able to guide people in the industry as to what needs to be done to continue to be successful in an environment that's changing so drastically.
Right. And then, well, geez, that sounds like good plans, right? And I want to thank you for coming on. I think there's been such good value that you provided today. I can fully understand, why you're so successful, and I wish you all the best going forward. And I hope that you only grow from strength to strength. Tell me, Nita, where can the listeners, where can the audience get a hold of you?
So first is they can find me on LinkedIn. So you'll just look me up, Nita Sanger, and then you'll find me on LinkedIn. Or you can sort of send me an email at nsanger@ideainnovate.com. And so happy to answer any questions they may have, or if they need any guidance, happy to provide that.
Lovely. Nita, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Take care.